All they talk about that discipline and hustle society. You neglect a big part of it. Yes, even if you hustle and you achieve your goals, if you in the process have lost yourself, you're losing the big battle. A lot of people say they want money or they want to succeed or they want to have a good career, but if deep down you feel like unlovable, unworthy, not good enough, you're gonna find ways to sabotage yourself. Your mind is gonna find ways to show you what you truly believe. It's not going to serve you because you're gonna face the same problem in a different situation. The more you avoid, the more you try and escape from that, the more you don't identify the core beliefs and the core wounds that are there that hold you back, the problem always gonna have just different faces. Either it's gonna be in your relationships. It's liberating. Literally, I feel like journaling has saved my life to sometimes.
Welcome everybody to another episode of On Path Podcast. Before we dive in, I have one small favor to ask you. Can you please hit that subscribe button so we can help and inspire more people like you every single week? Thank you. Today's episode is a special one because this was the very first episode Max and I recorded back in the days, initially for my biohacking community. In this episode, I interview Maximos George, who is running the #1 mental health and personal development podcast in Greece. Max shares his journey with mental health from anger and self-sabotage to developing emotional regulation and self-awareness. We talk about hustle culture, habits that break you down or build you up, and how ambitious men can master their inner world to transform their lives. If you feel that you are one of these men, you definitely want to stick around. And now to the episode. Well, Max, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, very excited about this one. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time now. So, you guys are running the #1 mental health and self-development podcast in Greece.
Yeah.
What does mental health mean to you?
We start with a deep question instantly, like just dive into the depth. I would say it means everything. You know, like mental health is the way we carry ourselves in life. Like the way you do things is affected by your mental health. Your relationships are affected by your mental health. The way you view life, your perspective, everything is affected by our mental health. So literally it means for me a lot. And seeing myself in the past having a few massive declines on my mental health and how it affected me in everything I was doing, it was probably the main reason why I do what I do today. More from like a perspective of I want as much as I can through my voice and my work to help people understand that this is something that a lot of us are going through and there is a way out.
So was this the main reason why you started the podcast?
Well, the podcast started without the main reason, let's just say. It was just two friends. And I remember George, he just turned around and asked me one day. We did one video on YouTube together and it went well. It was about, I think, something relatively to mental health. And then he just asked me, like, would you be down to just do a podcast? Like, we literally had no plan and nothing to grow or anything. We'd just be like, yeah, let's just turn on the mics and start talking. Just passion about mental health, self-development, and just share some messages with the world. But literally the first, you can even see it on the episodes, like the first episodes were random stuff. So initially, there wasn't any motive of starting it, but later on, it happened. It developed to something else.
Well, but you guys have been killing it so far. So I have a couple of stats here. You get almost 2 million streams.
Yep.
You get 46k followers on Spotify. And you have around like 54k followers across all different kind of platforms. So it's beautiful that how you just started it, right? I think that's something that a lot of people should just take note of, that if you would like to start something, just start doing it and let's see where it's going to go. So you guys chose the focus of mental health and self-development. What was your perspective on mental health growing up? Was that something that you guys have discussed openly in your home, or how did you start to develop interest towards this topic?
I wouldn't say it was a main topic in my home, mental health. Like, I don't remember growing up. My parents did like a good job of trying to maintain my mental health, but protect it. But at the same time, I feel that puts sometimes kids in danger. Like to a certain degree, they need to have like a base level knowledge of things can go wrong in life and how to handle them. But in my own bringing, it was very calm and very in a protective environment. I didn't even know what a mental health means, or that people struggle with mental health up until I almost reached adulthood. In my teenage years, you have the hormones going up and down, like you do have like anger or any things like that, but you don't know what causing this or how getting like bullied in school means actually like, and how it affects in your mental health, or being isolated, or if you don't have this knowledge on the background, you just end up at some point when you find out about all this topic and you're like, oh, wow, now explains a lot. But growing up, it wasn't a main topic. I only figured it out, I think, when I was 16, 17 years old. Like that was my first concerns about mental health.
Why? What happened?
Well, as I said, I had an easy childhood, like very protective childhood, although I did have struggles that affected me even later on from school, of like getting bullied, being isolated because I was different, because I was thinking different. So I didn't know what that means, but the first main struggle in my mental health came when I was like 18 years old, and the family business we used to have started decline with the economic crisis back then in Greece. And that was the first time I felt a bit depressed in my life, like grief and sadness. I've never experienced like these feelings that intense up to that point. And then when I was start researching about like what is meditation, like I randomly found it on YouTube, and then I was doing some research on my own, and then other topics about why we get that sad, how to overcome this, how we can regulate our anger. I remember one of the first, actually, let's go a little bit back before that. The first motivation for me to look into mental health was my anger issues as a teenager, because I was getting so angry, like 0 to 100 instantly, like furious. There was nothing in between. And that caused me some problems in school sometimes. Like I got into some fights, and
You were a naughty boy.
I wouldn't say naughty boy, but I was getting so angry. Not easily. I was so patient, but when you reach that level, boom, I snapped. And I always remember myself being really curious about human behavior, observing human behavior, even like as a child. I didn't know what it means, again. But that's probably like what people call callings sometimes. Like, because now that I can see my life in the past, I could always see myself being so curious about human psychology, about human behavior. And I didn't know what those words meant back then, but only later on I realized why I was curious on that and why I like that. But yeah, that was one of my first motives, was the anger, and then was like the sad period, which I started practicing meditation, some breath work, and start like journaling as well, and taking things like more internal and trying to find out how to be a better human to a certain level, how to develop myself and regulate emotions, behaviors. It was all up until then, but nothing in the upbringing, unfortunately.
But was it also difficult for you to handle this kind of emotions when you were a child versus a teenager?
I would say probably yes, because I didn't know what those emotions meant. Like I was dealing with them very isolated. Not that as I said, my parents created a very safe environment, but probably because the mental health and it was too much joy and happiness navigated, but probably because that wasn't something that brought up too much to me when I was feeling these things, when I was feeling on my lows. I always used to hide it from my parents to a certain level. Like I didn't engage in so many conversations. I only did later on in my teenage years with my father, because then we started a little bit having some of these conversations and became more of my early mentor into this. But as a child, nothing.
And have you figured out why was that like? Like why didn't you feel comfortable sharing those kind of emotions? Was this like a taboo in your household, or that was just you personally that you just didn't feel like?
I think it was more of like a me thing, because I don't. Maybe it's the same thing. Like probably as parents, and that's something that I would hold really strong as if I become a parent in the future, to engage in this kind of conversations with the kid, like to encourage the kids to open up when they feel sad, when they cry, instead of like just trying to cheer them up in these low moments, but to teach them how to sit down with those uncomfortable feelings and embrace them. Like to realize like these uncomfortable feelings is something, as you laugh, you will cry, make them the same, make them equal for the kids, because most of the parents, and probably mine did that too, I don't recall very clear the memories, but when the child is feeling uncomfortable feelings like anger, behave badly, sad, cry, they try to cheer this person up. They try to move them away from the feeling. And I believe it's really fundamental, beneficial for the kid to learn from a young age that these feelings are part of life, and these feelings are as equal and as important as the joyful feelings, as all the, in brackets, good feelings. There are no good feelings or bad feelings. But I think like I grew up thinking that they're the good feelings that they should feel most of the time, and then I was afraid of all these negative emotions because they felt uncomfortable. So that's when a parenthood can come in and help them embrace. Like, yeah, it's fine to feel like that. We all feel sad sometimes, Yeah, cry, take it out. Like, you don't need to stop cry. Oh no, you need to smother the kid and be like, oh no, my little baby, don't cry, it's all gonna be fine. No, it's not. Teach the kid from the very beginning, the first like early years of childhood, something that happened. Yeah, you will feel sad about it, and it's good. It's part of your emotions.
This is just a question that came to mind right now. What's your opinion on this new parenting style where parents allow their kids to experience, explore, and fully express themselves? How they are, how they feel, whether it's in private or in public. Because you think it's good?
Yeah, I think it's good. I'm not like a parent coach or psychologist or anything, but I feel like it can save you some troubles from it later on in life, because unless you're like super lucky in life and you never experience some negative situations, you will. And it's good to know that it's fine to feel them. It's fine if you're in public and you feel really overwhelmed by something, to not just suppress it and suck it up, to just let it go.
But don't you think it's also like a double-edged sword, where kids don't know the different kind of social boundaries that they may be crossing? So, for example, you are out in public, just about to onboard a plane, and the kids are acting like crazy. That's something that I started to experience more and more here in Asia due to some reason.
Oh, that's a different topic, yeah.
But it kind of like falls into a similar category, right? That in that moment, that child feels a certain way and they just act on it and they fully express it. So how would you find that middle ground where they can and they should express and experience those kind of feelings versus when is it that it's okay?
That's an interesting question, actually, because there's a difference, and you can teach to yourself. That's most important, because I think like most people don't have this capacity for themselves, so it's really hard to pass it on to the kids. But there's different of feeling the emotions and act on them. So just because you feel like that, you don't have to behave or act on them all the time. Like just because I feel angry, I don't have to go out and start throwing punches to everyone, And so there is a balance. Yeah, I'm all in to allow and embrace and teach kids how to embrace their emotions. But at the same time, you need to also teach them in a safe environment on how to regulate. Regulate your emotions. Don't let them dictate you. Because, if we just keep acting on the emotions, the world will be even worse than it is sometimes.
Yeah, so I don't want to spend so much time on kids and like how to
Yeah.
emotionally regulate as a child. But for example, if a grown-up person is listening to this, do you have anything like any go-to tips or strategies or methods or frameworks that you personally use to emotionally regulate yourself?
Every situation is different. It depends the depth, the the highs of the emotions, how you experience them. But as like if nothing is too severe at the moment, I would say journaling is one of the practices that helps a lot because you can observe your thoughts and your emotions. Gaining emotional awareness, like know how to identify the emotion. Because a lot of times people say like, "Oh, I feel shit today," and this happened to me like in my work as well. And I turn around every time when one of my clients say I feel shit, I'm telling, shit is not an emotion, man. You don't feel shit. You feel something. What is it that you feel? And that is definitely one of the practices that help a lot to identify what is the emotion. What do you feel right now? Do you feel scared? What's the primary emotions you're experiencing? And then find all the secondary too. So you feel scared, you feel anxious, frustrated, you're disappointed. Like, what is it? Insecure. So emotional awareness one. Journaling and reflect on those emotions when you identify them and try to see the root and the causes. Cliche, but yeah, meditation can help sometimes to regulate your breath because one thing that all the emotions affect in our body is breath. If you think about it, every time you experience a different emotion, it can be like passion when you're have an intimate moment with your partner, your breath is changing. When you laugh, when you're in joy, your breath is changing again. When you're sad, like anxious, like all these emotions affect our breath. So knowing how to regulate your breath is not going to make the emotion go away, but it's going to give you the safe space to work on the emotion and embrace it. So third would be breath. And last one is the same thing as comes after the breath, to embrace. Just feel it. It's not going to be the end of the world. Just have it in your head that no emotion lasts forever. If it lasts way too long, then probably something deeper than just an emotion, and you need to visit a therapist, a psychiatrist, or something to help you with something. But most of the times, emotions are temporary. So feel the depth of the emotion is a way to deal with it. Like, just let it be.
Yeah, I think I can also speak from experience that journaling definitely helps. And journaling for me, it's not about getting rid of the problems and the challenges that I face in life. It's more about processing them.
And
So
bring awareness. Like, imagine that your mind is a massive library with memories and everything. When you journal, it's like accessing parts of your subconscious. So you have a vague problem in your mind, but when you write it down and you are really honest with yourself and just let the flow goes, it takes some practice. Like at the beginning, some people can't experience this freedom, but the more you do, you will. It's literally feeling like you move the light to the direction you want it in this library. Like you move it where you want it to go, and gives you more awareness and gives you more knowledge to the problem.
I don't know exactly where I saw this one. There was this almost looking like a heat map where they were recording people journaling while they are journaling,
Yeah.
and they could literally see how the energy and the heat moves in their body and how it kind of like just appears in their brain, and then they can see how the energy flows through their arms out all the way to the paper where they are writing.
Yeah.
So I think the point of that experiment was just to prove that once an idea or even like a feeling or something is conceived inside of your body, you can actually get rid of that energy by putting it on paper.
Yeah. It's liberating. Literally, I feel like journaling has saved my life to sometimes. Like, I wouldn't be the same person without it.
Speaking of which, what was the biggest challenge you have overcome with your mental health?
Depression.
Depression.
Yeah. Not too severe. Like, there are the cases with way more severe. Mine was more of like a situational depression. And
What does that mean?
so there are like some different kinds of depression. Like some people have the biological depression that they born with, like gaps in their brain, especially it affects like the dopamine levels, that this causes depression. And most of the times it's people that they need to be in antidepressants, and it's really harder cases. And there's like the situational depressions, psychological depressions, that like a lot of events can get you down this path. And I don't remember the fourth one. But the situational can be like parts of the situation umbrella can be like seasonal depression. Like you hear sometimes that people get more depressed during the winter, which definitely the sun can affect that. Or it can
I experienced it in Denmark.
Yeah, for example, situation depressions are when events happen in your life, loss of people, grief triggers it a lot. So that's what triggered mine too, because there've been a lot of like events coming one back to the other, and I didn't see it coming, but it happened, and that was like the worst challenge I experienced. And you know, once you go down this route and you know that your body has the is prone to something like that, it always kind of haunts you, and you always just want to be more protective that this is not, I don't want this to happen again. But sometimes that works counterproductive, because the more you resist in some situations, the more it can come back and it persists to you. But that was the most challenging. It's been years ago. I felt it in some moments knocking on my door again, but I think it's helpful to know, to have the awareness and be able to accept it fast when it comes to your way. To be like, oh, I know where this is going. I know what I need to do, and refuse to completely give up on it. But even if you do, like, it's part of it.
So I came across this from Chris Williamson. He was saying that male depression gets treated like female depression. Men are made feel loved and accepted when all they want to do is feel capable and powerful, and to be competent, respected, and admired. You give these things to a man, he will deal with suffering until the end of this earth. What was your strategy like to get through that period of life?
I think that what you just read was spot on. I didn't know. I didn't have a strategy back then. Now I know what I need to do if it happens. Again, how to overcome. But back then I had no idea. I was feeling quite lost. In this period of my life, I literally just moved out from home, been to a different country. I have lost my father 6 months ago. I haven't dealt with grief in this whole time. I was just numbing myself and distracting myself with substances, too much work, not sitting down and actually see what happened. So when I move out 6 months later, and I spent some time isolating, nothing to numb my brain, then all the thoughts and all the feelings just came in place, and it hit me like like a massive bomb inside me. Like everything just exploded. And what I did to deal with it was I seek help. I visit a therapist in the campus. I seek a mentor as an extra help to help me with self-development, to make me feel empowered, because, the therapists, you just have these conversations that can help you to a certain level. But what helped me a lot was trying to empower myself, to feel, to navigate through the purpose again. I started gym. Gym literally, I think, was one of the main, and that's why I also like in my work to combine fitness with mental health, because for me, gym helped me through this time. If it wasn't there to give me again another purpose, to gain the feedback, to regain some confidence, to have something to work on a lot in life, I don't know what would happen, I was also studying something I was really passionate about, and I wanted to get better. So I think everything that you read, I wasn't realizing back then, but that was the steps that helped me go through it slowly. It took like whole 6 months to overcome it to a certain level. And then probably I developed some kind of trauma, because then for the next about 2.5 years, maybe 3, I wasn't able to access much of emotions, which being an actor, that was a problem as well back then, because I couldn't access my emotions to put them out. I was so afraid of the emotions. So when my practice as in the theater was to sow emotions and feel them to act, that was my biggest challenge back then. And only the last year of my training I managed to release. So theater, the practices I've learned there, they actually helped me so much learning about myself, so much breaking those walls about emotions, changing my view about human behavior and psychology. Like, people don't understand because it's not something that you think about what acting is about and theater is about. But it was so much depth on the human psychology and philosophy through that changed completely my perspective and helped me in one of the most challenging periods of my life. But the early steps was that just wanted to feel more empowered, educate myself as much as I could, trying to understand myself and find myself through that period, and gym. Working out almost every day.
Probably, like, if I can speak from my experience, I think this is also something that not just me, but many people out there also struggle with, is that little voice in your head when you speak to yourself.
Yeah.
So self-talk was something very difficult for me to navigate, and just to speak to myself in a more compassionate way whenever something happens. So for me, self-talk was definitely a difficult journey to learn how to navigate that little voice in my head, the way I speak to myself. And someone told me this, and it really got me thinking, that if you catch yourself talking to yourself, just listen how you speak to yourself. And if you were saying the same things that you are telling yourself to a friend, you would be ashamed of how you are speaking to yourself. So is there any practice or strategy or something that you apply in order to catch yourself in those moments? Because that could be like a very important, like, foundational moment in order to develop that kind of awareness that you were referring to earlier.
I realized years after that I have the same problem. Like, I was talking really bad about myself. And up until recently, I also realized something else, that my love to myself was conditional. You know, I had the capacity to give unconditional love to others, but my love to myself was conditional. If I wasn't productive enough, if I wasn't performing well, I was talking shit about me. I was feeling bad about myself. I had zero compassion. Ill, low energy, tired, no excuses. Like, nah, you can do it. And sometimes you can feel like that. It's the same voice that can motivate you to a certain level, like, because you believe so much in your strength that no matter what, even if you don't feel like it, you can do it. You have to be so disciplined and do it. And yes, discipline goes as far as it does, because after that, it's not discipline anymore, it's negative self-talk. When you can't show compassion to you, that's not discipline anymore. And especially in our standards and the trends that we have now, that only talk about the discipline and hustle society, you neglect a big part of it. Yes, even if you hustle and you achieve your goals, if you in the process have lost yourself or lost the compassion towards yourself just because you have to be more disciplined or you have to be more like a robot, you're losing the big battle. You might win the small ones, but you're losing a big one with yourself. Because it will come to you at some point. It will knock at your door. And if it doesn't affect you directly, it might affect your relationships. So, as a person who for years, I had a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors. Not that I don't now. I still keep cutting myself having them. My take on that is I named those voices. I named them ego, my ego self. Because for years, I had issues with my ego self. And no matter what some people try, and I tried it too, I'm not going to blame anyone for that, if we try to suppress the ego self, you can never beat that beast. You can never win the ego self. You can always learn to deal and listen to it in a better way. You can't completely reason with it. You can only learn how to deal with it. Well, what is there? What to deal with this part of you. identify. And it's a long process. You ask me if I have a tip to that. It's not a tip. Like, I can give 10 tips, but it's going to take really long time. Like, you need to be so patient. You need to develop really deep level of awareness. Journaling is one of the tips. Like, journal, write them down, listen to your voices, and practice like what is now called mindfulness. But I would say more of like observing listening to these voices, name them, literally give them names. And when they speak to you, think as if someone is speaking to you. Like, visualize conversations with you when this is happening and try to see where voice is coming from. Not always these bad voices are coming from a place of distraction, because that's one of the biggest misconceptions probably. Like, people think that they have all these negative voices because they want to harm them. They don't want to harm you. Every voice has one goal. Some of them have to protect you, which usually is protection. Fear is a voice of protection as well. Anxiety is a voice of protection. All these things that you don't have the capacity to do yet, and you have all this down talk, is coming from a good place inside of you. It's coming from a good inner child inside of you trying to communicate with you. But sometimes it's not relevant to the present. So that's why for me it's important to give them names and realize why I have the fear right now. I have the fear because I'm afraid that if I do this step and I fail, I will feel bad about myself. So I'd rather not to do it at all because I don't want to feel bad about myself because I failed. And this shows lack of compassion and lack of understanding. Because if a friend of you come to you and say, like, I want to try this next move on my business or try to approach this person or whatever it is, the situation, what would you say to them? Yeah, of course, do it. Would you ever discourage someone to do that? Most likely no. But when it comes to yourself, you have such a much of protective mechanisms that we're going to block you because you don't want to get hurt, or you don't want to fail, or you don't want to feel this really sad, deep emotions. So you prefer to avoid, escape, leave this friendship because if I get too close, I might get hurt. Or leave this business idea because if it fails, I don't know how to handle it. And it doesn't happen consciously, it happens subconsciously all the time. The only way to deal with them is to observe your patterns and be very brutally honest with yourself. Yes, I do that.
It's a self-protecting mechanism that's happening there. That's why I found the workshop super fascinating that we had last week about the subconscious mind, is because whether we like it or not, we are all fucked up in a way. Because literally we have been programmed by our experiences. Your brain is a sponge. It just absorbs everything from the moment you're born until the age of 7, right? Because your brain wavelength and everything is changing. So before that, you're literally programmed in order to survive this world. And many of those learnings are not serving you anymore as an adult.
Yeah.
But they are there, and you don't even know that they are there. And they are impacting every single moment of your life. And whether it comes to business or money or relationships or friendships or just to yourself as well. So that's why it's very important to do the work and break down those kind of behavioral patterns that are not serving you anymore. And that's why I think it's very important that people spend some time with themselves. And that's something that we don't do nowadays.
Yeah.
Because there's always something just to numb our feelings, just to distract ourselves, to not face the problems that we have in our lives. Because it's just easier to avoid them and to not deal with them. But the problem is not solved. And it's still going to be there, and it's still going to be growing inside of you, and it's going to impact the rest of your life.
Yeah. It's, as you said, it's easy. That's why most people choose this path. But it's not going to serve you. Because you're going to face the same problem in a different situation. The more you avoid, the more you try and escape from that, the more you don't identify the core beliefs and the core wounds that are there that hold you back, the problem always going to have just different faces. Either it's going to be in your relationships, like a lot of people feel, they say they want a successful relationship, they say they want a good partner, but then they have all these deep wounds of not feeling capable of love, like or unlovable for themselves. Because if you don't give love to yourself, if you don't show compassion to yourself, if you don't show empathy to yourself, no wonder why you can't show it to other people, but you can't accept this from other people. So this is going to affect your pretty much all the relationships in your life if you haven't identified what is that makes you keep repeating the same pattern. Same as in your business. Like if a lot of people say they want money or they want to succeed or they want to have a good career, but if deep down you feel like unlovable, unworthy, not good enough, you're going to find ways to sabotage yourself. Your mind is going to find ways to show you what you truly believe.
And if you tell those kind of things to yourself, you are going to find a way to prove it to yourself that
you
you
need
are
to
right.
prove it. Exactly.
If you tell yourself that you are a loser, yes.
If
You
tell
are going to
yourself
prove
I'm
it to
always-
yourself that you are right.
Yeah.
You are right, you are a loser.
If
But-
your core belief is I'm always going to fuck up at the end, you're always going to fuck up at the end.
Exactly. So that's why it's also very important to practice this self-talk. It's almost like a self-hypnosis, that the things that you say out loud, the things that you have conversations in your own head, those are the things that are actually going to manifest and going to become true.
Yes. But also identify where are these coming from? What make you feel unworthy in the past? Why you having, like, challenge yourself, ask those challenging questions of why do I keep self-sabotaging myself? Because deep down I don't feel like I deserve this. Why? What was the trigger? Like, what made me feel like that? And with therapy and good work, you can, if it's behavior pattern, you can overcome it. Like, I do have big faith and belief in people because I've seen so many changes, but sadly there are more rare cases. But I do believe that everyone has the capacity to change as long as they want it, as long as they decide that I don't want to have this anymore in my life, I don't want to have this pattern anymore, I'm going to do whatever it takes to break it. And these are the people that you see that they transform their lives completely in the course of 1 or 2 years.
So why do you think that people keep on coming back to listen to your podcast? So if everybody has the power and the strength and the ability to do this kind of stuff themselves, why do you think that people resonate with your approach?
I don't think we all have the ability to do them themselves, but I don't think you completely can to a certain level. You need to get more knowledge. You need to get help probably sometimes from someone. Like, that's another thing. Like, people are afraid sometimes to seek help. Seeking help and verbalize your thoughts and listen back to what this person can tell you, it helps a lot. But for our podcast, I think the biggest factor of success, as we received so many messages like that, was one of the most repetitive messages we keep getting at the beginning was like, you guys vocalize my thoughts. You put into words the mess in my head, and then I listen it back from you, and everything in my life starts making sense. So, relatable. I think it was very relatable because we never tried to play it the pros or the educators only here. We're just literally discussing things that we also felt, sharing some knowledge we have on how to navigate in these kind of situations. And people who listened, they literally felt there was, as we're having this conversation here, they keep telling us that they feel like they're in the same room, but they can't speak to us, but they just be part of the friendship that we had. And like the words we're using, it's exactly the words they were looking for to vocalize how they feel, to vocalize how they perceive this situation in their life. So I think that probably was one of the biggest factors.
Do you have like a favorite episode that you guys have produced? Something that people truly loved and they were referring back to multiple times?
I don't think I have one specific episode that I love. I know some of them that performed well, but not one clear one, one specific one. Maybe the The law of attraction was a very good episode because we debunked the myth of law of attraction and we actually explained how it works, and that was that was helpful because there's been so much of misinformation or pseudo science out there about the law of attraction. Just like go and say those things to yourself every day in the mirror and then you manifest. Like, that's not how it actually works. No matter how many times you will say or write it down or brainwash yourself to believe, if you don't actually believe it deep inside, it's not going to work.
So how does this work? Just very briefly.
So the law of attraction, that was the main thing we said in the podcast too, is law of action. You can't just pray for it, sit down, do nothing, like stare yourself in the mirror and say, you're great, you're great, you're great, you're great, and happen magically, you're going to believe it. No. Yeah, like saying good things to yourself can affect your mental health and can affect you. But if you, the moment you stare yourself and say those words, you don't believe them at all. You're just pretending. So the law of attraction works to find the deeper drive in you to manifest what you want in life, like to design, to visualize very vividly your life and what you want to get, but also at the same time to believe that you deserve to live this life, and then action. Because you can't just, even if you do the first two, if you don't take action, nothing is going to happen. Law of attraction is, in brackets, bullshit. It's law of action. Do the right actions, believe them, and you will see everything you want to attract, you will.
So what's the first step? Belief or action?
Sometimes it depends on the case. Sometimes it's even action, the first case. Like, even if you don't believe it 100%, just do it. Just try it. If you can see the path, try to do the first steps, even if you don't believe them 100%. A lot of the times in some of the things I have accomplished, I wasn't believing them at 100%. I was just like, yeah. But the belief can come. But you need to believe that you're worthy, that you deserve it. Even if you don't believe 100% you will get it, you need to believe at least that I deserve that.
So this is something that you and I talked about yesterday, right?
We spoke about a lot of things yesterday.
I know.
We're having like so many conversations every day.
What I'm referring to is that when we were speaking about how to handle a situation where you feel like not doing something and you have this confusion in your head, whether I should rest or I should work. If I work, then am I really forcing myself? Do I need to work, or I actually need rest? The only way we know what the right move is by making the move.
Yeah.
Because you cannot think your way out of a situation without having clarity and without having the evidence, right? So I think it's very common amongst highly ambitious people, where you always feel the need that you need to do, and you don't really give yourself time to rest. It reminds me to something that Naval Ravikant said about how people work. So you have two options: either you work as a cow or you work like a lion, right? And when you don't give yourself time to rest, you are just a cow, just on the field, munching on grass all day, always trying to do something. Yeah. Versus a lion, what does it do? It rests, it sleeps, it gets ready. It preserves its energy for the time when it has to run. And when the opportunity comes, it mobilizes everything it got, runs after that gazelle, hunts, then feasts, celebrates, then rests again, right? But of course, there are moments in life when you don't know what the right course of action is, especially when somebody is going through something, right? The best way to find out is actually do. So what I mean by that is that if you don't know that you should rest or you should work, try rest, see how it makes you feel. If you feel guilty that, oh, I'm wasting time, I'm not working, okay, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, then give in. Go, do work, and see how that makes you feel.
Here's a little bit of problem on that, though.
Why?
Because if you feel guilty while you're resting, you're not resting. Because your mind is working in overdrive.
But that's exactly the point, right? So let's say that you feel guilty of not working, and then you go, you do the work, then you see how that makes you feel. Like, at least when you are going to take rest again, you already know that is it actually that do you have to work, or you are seeking more clarity by doing it, rather than just playing those kind of games in your head that are not even real.
I have a small rule for that. Is when you're in debate, because sometimes the answer is clear. I'm so tired today, my body screams for rest. In these days, just rest. Like, you need rest. Unless it's something that you cannot avoid of not doing, just do the bare minimum and rest. But in the days that there is a debate on that, my rule is like, push to work as far as you can. And if you still feel you need rest by evening or by next day, then take the whole next day for rest. But sometimes, the emotions kicks in a faster in a different way and can mislead you. So the days that I would just wake up and I feel like, I feel a bit tired today. Should I work? Should I not? I'm trying to identify this voice and say to myself, look, you're going to work today, half day at least. And if you feel the same by evening, then you can take the rest of the day off and tomorrow off to rest. But if you don't feel the same, that means probably it was just like part of a procrastination or part of something else. But this is also like situational, because like if you're dealing less, if you're heading towards depression, let's say, or if you're dealing with something that drains you mentally or physically, then these rules don't apply there. This rule only applies in the everyday life, when your emotions are more like in a regulated state.
What's one opinion of yours that you feel most people would disagree with?
I think it was that I expressed earlier about like the hustle society. It's not like I it's funny saying this because I am in this side of it too. Like, I do push myself. I'm very ambitious. I do work. I've spent like periods in my life working non-stop for months. And because I've done that, I feel like I can speak with experience. Like, I'm not talking as a lazy person who say like, oh, guys, should not listen to all this hustle culture and take some time off and rest and actually learn to listen to your body. It's because I've done it for years, which gives me the perspective to know that this is a bit... I mean, if it works for some people, it works. But does it actually work for you, or are you just using it as a form of distraction to avoid other stuff too? So that is definitely an unpopular opinion, that rest and doing things for your pure joy and take some time off from this hustle culture is not something you should feel ashamed of. It's something you should feel proud of. And it's something that is more productive most of the times. Like, discipline yourself, but discipline yourself not only to work, but to know how to get a rest. Like, full on discipline and awareness. Because discipline, for me, is the biggest act of self-love. So when you discipline yourself, it's literally it's knowing to do the best thing for you and have the discipline to do so. So a lot of times we compare the word discipline with only doing the struggles and the hard stuff. No, discipline is also to know when the strict parent voices in your head telling you to hustle more, to work out more, to do more. But your body feels like, I need rest. I need some connection with friends. I need some me time. I need to just go for a walk or for a bike ride. Like, I need to do something to feel more at ease with my brain and regulate my emotions. This is also discipline. To take yourself and remove you from the hassle, the work, the training, or whatever it is, and have the discipline to do nothing. To just relax.
Very well said. And I think that you are speaking to a lot of people out there, and including myself as well, because I think many of us struggle with that. Because that's the example that we see out there. Go, do, hustle, right? But you literally exhaust yourself. And your number one job there is to perform at your best. But you cannot perform at your best if you're exhausted all the time. So giving yourself a break, find some time to rest. Very similar to when you start working out, for example, right? You need to find a time when you are going to allow your body to rest and recover and get ready for the next session.
Gym is the perfect example to that. Like your body teaches you the same principle that you can apply for your business, your career, your mind. Your muscles, they don't grow in the gym; they grow in the rest. You go there, you
How
tear
so?
them, because that's how it works. Like you go there, you tear your muscle fibers apart. You have a tough workout, but all the growth comes then while you're sleeping. Do you get enough protein? Do you eat enough? And what do you do the rest of the day? So the growth comes after the workout. The workout is the trigger for the growth. So you go there, the mechanical tension and the load and your training, the way you train, is going to trigger the growth. But the growth in your body is going to happen when you rest, when you feed with the right nutrients. So the same principle can apply for your mind as well, or your work too. And you can see this like a lot of times, and I've been into this period that you just push, and then you're just doing more, as we say in the gym as well, junk volume. Like the more is not more, the less is more sometimes. The example you said with the lion, I think was very on point, was a very good one. Like if you just hunt, you don't give yourself the time to eat and celebrate what you catch, and you're just going to exhaust your body. It has happened to me in the past. I've been through 2 burnouts in my life. And only in the second time, sometimes, and it's good like for people to experience themselves. Like you need to make the mistake to learn. Like I did it once, I need to do it twice to learn. But yeah, like after my second burnout, it was when I started changing my perspective about rest. Before that, I was just like a meathead on hustle. But then you just realize like, because when you get to the burnout stage, then you need months to recover. You literally fry your brain to a certain level, and you know that this is not going to get me further. It might get me fast at the beginning, but what's your goal? Is your goal like just to sprint and do a project? Because if that's your goal, then yeah, you need to push yourself. But if your goal to sustain for as long as you can and develop good system and habits to produce for a really long time, to perform for a really long time. Same thing goes even for relationships, to help to maintain a healthy relationship with friends, partner, co-workers for a really long time. You never want to rush and push things really fast. You want to progressively load them.
I think that's a very important point that you mentioned. So, Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah, I love that book.
I love that book.
Yeah.
That's the book that I try to read every single year because I forget stuff.
Yeah.
And I always find something in it that I just couldn't remember it was there. And most of the time, that's exactly what I needed to hear in order to navigate through my current situation. So anyway, I love that book. And what really resonated with me from that book is that when you want to go through a change, I'm paraphrasing. When you want to go through a change, you have envisioned a new identity for yourself that you would like to feel. Right? But that identity is not you yet. There is a path to get there. But when the idea is conceived in your mind that you would like to go through that change, most of the time people, including myself as well, I get super excited about it. And I just want to change everything all at once. New year, new me.
Yeah.
That stuff does not work. I can tell you that. What works is exactly what you just said. Progressively, step by step.
The same thing that works for the gym, progressively overload.
Exactly.
Let's start everything.
Exactly. So I also went through a pretty big transformation over the past year or so. And people ask me, like, how did you do it? And usually my answer is that I just change one little thing every single week.
Exactly.
And that's not the answer that they are looking for. They are looking for the magic pill, the magic substance I took.
Yeah, the switch that flipped in your brain and then all of a sudden make everything change. But
that switch happened. But I know that if I'm just going to act like that in all parts of life, that's great for like manifesting it. You need to feel it. You need to vibrate on that frequency. That's all good and very nice. But in reality, your new identity and your current identity are not the same.
Yeah, they clash.
Exactly. So what's going to happen when you have a bad day? You know, you're just going to fall back on the level of your system, something that
Yep.
your body and your mind already knows. So you are just going to fall back on the same fucked up habits that you had before, right? So this is where discipline is, again, very important. But the best way to stay consistent with those kind of things is by making it easy. Just step by step, one change at a time, and then over time it's just going to compound. And once it compounds, everything has changed. Your day has changed, your habits have changed, you have changed, and out of a sudden you are going to notice that you just became the person you wanted to become a year ago, right?
Yeah, make it easy, because the easy, like, that's something to confuse people, that just because you make it easy for where you are now, it doesn't mean you can't make it harder later. But make it easy for the person you are today, because new year, new me, like, you have this inspiration of the person you want to become, and just because you believe I can be this person, you think like magically I'm this person from tomorrow. You're not. You're the same person you were on the December 31st. Just because the years has changed, you're not someone different. Just because you make the decision for in your life that from next week or next month I'm gonna change who I am. You can, but you need to take the level 1 of the work. You can't jump levels. Because if you do, like, for some people it might work. Sometimes it requires some traumatic events to make these radical changes, but it's still progressive. Like, even for the people who seemed like they did a massive change really quick, if you see what was happening inside of them and the steps they followed, the habits they changed, it was still progressive. Nothing was like overnight magically changed all those things. It was literally, again, they make their choice to change, like probably happened to you when you said like the switch that flipped. Like, it flipped your switch and you knew what you need to do to become the person you aspired to be, and that where you're going right now is not getting you there. So you put those things down and you're like, okay, I need to start doing that. And then you slowly pushing yourself a little bit, making it easy for you, day by day, you try to make it happen. And over time, now you just automatically, some of the things works for you. You don't even need to try the same things, but now you try for different things. That's the same progressive overload that we use in the gym. Like, now you try for bigger weights.
Yeah.
But if you put yourself a year ago to lift the weights you're lifting today, injury.
So I guess you have talked to a bunch of people regarding mental health. You are also a personal trainer. Over these years, what is the most common thing that people usually struggle with, or what is the thing that you have learned yourself that's something that needs more attention?
What I've learned from working with a lot of people in mental health is like a lot of the stuff, they may have different names or faces, but are similar struggles. Like, we do share a lot of similar struggles. As an area, if I had to isolate one, I would say relationships is one of the biggest problems that people face in their work environment, friends, and intimate relationships. I feel like that in our generation and the way the modern society is structured, it promotes a lot of isolation. And I think this is way against our nature. And this disconnection from especially person-to-person contact creates a lot of problems with people. Like, they struggle more to engage in their relationships. They struggle more to receive and give love in any form and way. And that's a very common thing that I face. I see in people all the time in the mental health, their relationships.
What's the best way to overcome that?
As you work with other things, you also need to do the work to be a better person in relationships. To see your patterns. Because, like, another pattern that I see a lot is the blame. Like, they just blame everyone. They blame their friends. They blame their bossy boss. They blame their partner for doing that. You need to take the 50% of the accountability in any interaction. Like what you can do, how you can stand more. So the way they can work is, first you need to do the inner work. You need to see like why I cannot accept gifts, for example. Why do I believe I don't deserve to be loved? Why I don't believe that I don't feel equal to some of other people? Like, do I value too much their outside success? Do I like, what are the blocks you're having? That will help a lot. But this is a long journey. Like, you need to approach relationships as you approach, let's say, other things that you learn in life. And the reality is that most people, and I see this especially more often to men, because women tend to try to learn and educate themselves a bit more on that. They just don't try to learn how to be better at relationships. Not only in their intimate, same as in their friendships as well. They don't allow themselves to be vulnerable, which is a big factor. Like, if you want to have good relationships in your life, you need to break this fear of being vulnerable in front of other people. It takes you so far away. Like, you need to let go of the masks. The second thing, be yourself. And if you don't like parts of yourself, good. That also shows you something in life. Change them. Be a better human. I think that's the main fundamentals on carrying yourself better in relationships. Like, see yourself for who you are. Do the work. Learn more how to carry yourself better in relationships.
I definitely see that the younger generation now, they spend more time than ever before on self-development. So for example, when I look back how I behaved at the age of 20, I was not thinking about this kind of things. I feel that people in their 20s now, they spend way more time on understanding themselves, working on themselves, right? What is one idea that you think that the majority of people get wrong about self-development?
Oh, I have the best one for that. That they think they need to fix themselves. They think they're broken. That's a response I'm getting all the time. Like, especially that's why I don't like the term self-improvement. I prefer the term self-development, because you develop yourself. But even in the self-development, or even in their mental health, people who have a trauma, people who try or recently identified their traumas or some of the things that are holding them back from the past, they see themselves broken. And like a little broken bird that needs to be fixed. And my perspective on that is, no one's broken. You're not broken. You're wounded. You have traumas. But as a person, even if you change nothing, you can still be complete. But not for the person you aspired probably to be, and not for you to build relationships with people you aspire to be with. So you're never truly broken. You're just feeling broken because you feel like, I want to be in different environment with different people and carry myself in a different way. And this disassociation creates this feeling of being broken. But you're not. You don't need to fix anything. Only if you want, you can develop some aspects of yourself to be more aligned with the person you want to be. Or to help you, actually, because it doesn't matter the person you want to be for who. No one wants to be like for themselves only, but the person you want to be to carry yourself better in your career, in your relationships, and in your life. And I feel like the more they feel broken and that need to be fixed, the more it keeps them into this kind of broken mentality, victim mentality a little bit.
If someone is listening to this, what would be your suggestion to them to do first if they would like to get better?
Every situation is different, so it depends on how you feel. One of the best things is to seek help. Even if it's minor, seek help. Invest in mentor. Books, podcasts, educate yourself helps a lot. Journal and like do the inner work with yourself. It helps a lot. But being in a community with other people that you see, they talk about those things and they help you, give you different perspective, or have a mentor in your life or a therapist or whoever that you can trust to open up, be vulnerable, and help in this self-development journey. You're already doing the self-development journey by just talking to this person. It's not like how many things these people can teach you, is that you, by walking on this road, you're already doing half of the job.
I think you mentioned something very interesting, community.
Yeah.
So that was also one of the main reasons why I started Limitless Biohacking Community, because I just wanted to bring my friends together and make them feel heard and understood, and let them know that they are not alone on their health journey. Most of us are struggling with the exact same thing. We have the exact same questions, but just by bringing people together, you immediately have a sense of belonging, and you are more likely to succeed on the journey that you are about to take on if you are not doing it alone. So I think that's something very important, that people try to find a community that they resonate with, and make sure that the community has the people that they are genuinely happy to talk to or hang out with. And another thing you mentioned is books. I know you read a lot of books. Is there any book in particular that really changed your life, or something that you would confidently recommend to people to read?
Yeah, there are a few. The one we already mentioned, The Atomic Habits, that was a really good book that helped me to become a better coach on the habits and productivity as well with people. But it was also helped me understand some stuff about me. Then I would say I love the book Green Lights from Matthew McConaughey, because the discipline of them teaches you the discipline of like every red light in your life can become green as long as you be patient and trying to work on it to change. I love like the message. The Courage to be Disliked. That was a life-changing book. I've read it, I think, 2 times already. And Meditations, Marcus Aurelius.
It really stood the test of time.
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend. I can give a whole 20 book list to recommend because there's so many. But these are like some of the top of my head that just instantly come and like, yeah, these books were life-changing.
Max, this has been enlightening. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
If there is one takeaway that you hope the listeners take away from this conversation, what would that be?
That no matter what you're dealing right now in your life, no matter how difficult things can be, no matter how lost you might feel, as the example I mentioned earlier, that I've been in this very lost place, seek help, try to do the work, and remember that the emotions are temporary, the feelings can be temporary. What you're living, where you are today towards where you can be in a year or 2 years or 3 years' time, it can be something completely life-changing. As long as you are persisting. Like this cliche quote that, fall down but never give up, stand back up. This is true. It is true. Like as long as you try to lift yourself back again with compassion and love, that's all you need. Love and compassion towards you and towards others.
Thank you. This has been amazing.
Thank you.